In 1967, a man boarded a spacecraft knowing it would kill him, not suspecting, not fearing, knowing. The engineers knew, the scientists knew, the KGB knew. Over 200 structural failures had been documented before launch. The parachute system was untested. The craft had never completed a successful unmanned flight. And yet, the countdown continued. Because one man made a choice that had nothing to do with courage and everything to do with love. If he refused to fly, someone else would take his seat, someone he could not allow to die. So Vladimir Komarov strapped himself into a machine that his own colleagues called a flying coffin. He lifted off in front of the cameras, smiled for the Soviet state, and disappeared into orbit. What happened next was recorded. Every transmission, every malfunction, every desperate attempt to bring him home. The ground crew heard everything. They could do nothing. And in his final moments, with Earth filling his window and the ground rushing up at him, he did something no astronaut had ever done before. He screamed. This is that story. By 1967, the Soviet space program was bleeding. Not visibly, not publicly. From the outside, it still looked like a machine of miracles. The nation that launched the first satellite, sent the first man into orbit, and humiliated American ambition at every turn. But behind the walls of the Baikonur launch facility, behind the classified memos, and the locked filing cabinets, the program was held together by fear, political pressure, and lies. The new spacecraft was called Soyuz 1. It was supposed to be the future, a vessel capable of docking in orbit, a demonstration of Soviet mastery over space. It was scheduled to launch on April 23, 1967, timed deliberately to celebrate the upcoming Communist Party Congress. The date was not chosen by engineers. It was chosen by politicians. And the engineers were terrified. Over 200 structural and technical faults had been documented in the Soyuz design. The parachute landing system had never been successfully tested. Multiple unmanned test flights had ended in failure. A report signed by senior aerospace engineers and addressed directly to Brezhnev laid out the problems in exhaustive detail. It was ignored. The men who signed it were quietly reassigned. The cosmonaut selected to fly was Vladimir Komarov, 40 years old, decorated test pilot, the first man to fly a multi-crew spacecraft, calm, precise, respected by everyone who knew him, and completely aware of what he was being asked to do. He was not naive. He had read the reports. He had seen the test data. He knew the Soyuz was not ready. But he also knew something else. If he refused, if he stepped back and declared the mission unsafe, the seat would go to his backup pilot, his closest friend, the most famous human being in the Soviet Union, Yuri Gagarin. Komarov could not let that happen, so he said nothing. He signed the flight manifest. He shook hands with the officials. And on the morning of April 23rd, he walked to the launch pad and climbed inside the machine he believed would kill him. No one stopped him. The launch looked perfect. That was the cruelest part. From the ground, from the cameras, from the television screens broadcasting across the Soviet Union, Soyuz 1 rose cleanly into the sky, trailing fire, disappearing into the blue. The announcers read their approved scripts. The officials nodded. The mission had begun. Inside the capsule, Komarov already knew it was falling apart. Within the first orbit, one of the two solar panels failed to deploy. It remained folded against the hull, starving the spacecraft of half its electrical power. Systems began to drop offline. The attitude control thrusters, the mechanisms that kept the craft stable and oriented, started misbehaving. The spacecraft began to drift, slowly rotating in ways it was not supposed to. From the ground, mission controllers watched the telemetry and made a decision they would spend the rest of their lives trying to justify. They would attempt to continue. They would try to stabilize the craft remotely. They would find a solution. There was no solution. Komarov worked methodically. He was a trained pilot, and he treated the disintegrating spacecraft around him the way a surgeon treats a patient. Precisely, without panic, documenting each failure, trying every procedure. But the systems kept dying. The manual orientation controls were nearly useless without full power. Every attempted correction made the rotation worse. On the ground, Yuri Gagarin arrived at mission control. He was not supposed to be there. He had no official role in the mission. But he came anyway, because he understood what was happening, and he could not stay away. He stood at the console and listened to his friend's voice coming down from orbit. Calm, technical, describing a spacecraft that was slowly becoming a tomb. At some point during those hours, the decision was made to abort the mission and bring Komarov home. The re-entry would require precise orientation. A craft spinning out of control could not achieve it. They had one chance. And everyone in that room, including Komarov, knew the odds. For hours, the ground crew fed Komarov instruction after instruction, hoping something would stabilize the craft. He executed every one of them, methodically, without complaint. At one point, a senior official picked up the line and told him everything would be fine, that engineers were working on it, that he should stay calm. Komarov told him to get off the line. There are accounts, disputed but repeated by multiple sources, that in his final moments, the composure finally broke. That the man who had stayed silent to protect his friend finally said what he felt about the engineers, the officials, the system that sent him here, knowing what would happen. He was not calm at the end. The re-entry burn was attempted. The capsule survived the heat. The parachute deployed. Then the main chute failed. The reserve tangled with it. Soyuz 1 hit the ground at roughly 140 kilometers per hour. The retro rockets, meant to soften the landing, ignited on impact instead, turning the wreckage into a fireball. Vladimir Komarov died on impact, April 24th, 1967. He was 40 years old. The Soviet government called it a technical malfunction. They gave him a state funeral, placed his ashes in the Kremlin wall, called him a hero. None of it was wrong, but none of it was complete. Komarov had requested an open casket. The impact had left almost nothing recognizable, but he had asked in advance. Even in that final detail, he refused to let them make it easy. Yuri Gagarin died 11 months later in a routine training flight. He was 34. Two men, both gone, both killed in different ways by the same machine. Vladimir Komarov was not a symbol. He was a man who made an impossible choice and kept it quietly all the way to the end. If this story stayed with you, there are more like it. Stories from the edges of human history, waiting in the dark. Subscribe to Star Voyager and we'll find them together.